Here at Pierson Workholding, we love automation, whether it's simple automation, robotic arms, complex multi-axis machines. I love all that new technology. So in this video, I give a speech talking about our journey to an automated facility. Now, I don't want you to miss one key point. I start by talking about one of our company principles, which is peace. Now, don't miss the connection between peace and automation, namely how if automation is done incorrectly or too soon, it can be a major point of stress, frustration, and ultimately a breaker of the pursuit of peace. Let's get started.
Today, I've been tasked with the assignment to talk about workholding for automation, but really, to be honest, I'm a little bit more excited to give you timeless principles, because I know some of the things that we've talked about today, they will change, they will evolve, so principles will last forever. To do that, I want to take a step back and give you the big picture of what powers our company. I don't necessarily use this terminology in any of the videos. If a visitor comes by, I will, but I'll share that with you guys. We have the pursuit of peace as one of our driving principles in the company. Peace is a perpetual snowball. When you pursue the peace in the workplace, you have happy employees, you have processes that are nearly bulletproof, all the stress is taken out. I have yet to meet someone that says, boy, when I wake up on Monday morning, I can't wait to go in and fix a broken machine and deal with an angry customer and work with things that just don't post right. No one talks like that. So when we pursue peace, things go well because we create that destiny. So let me take you back in history because it is relevant. I started my business out of a passion for mountain biking. I was racing here in the state of California. I did fairly well. I got to the point where I would join these circuit races, and here's a picture of me. I took third place in the state of California in the 2001 California Mountain Bike Championships. Whoop-de-doo, right? I am not bragging. This is relevant. Okay, there's me on the podium. I like this because this was like the culmination of all this passion and all this training and all this money that went into upgrading my bicycle and then tweaking it to inch out the competition. But I like this one picture in particular. Here's me. This is after we had our photo op. You can kind of see it on the other guys' faces, but if you zoom in, if you really look at that, it's a terrible photo, but there's a smirk on my face. And at that moment, I thought to myself, I trained, I spent money, time, and I took third place in California for the beginner men's 19 to 24 classification. I don't think it was worth it, because all I got was literally that little plaque as I stood on this janky plywood box with the number 3 below my feet. That was a moment that I realized, thinking, man, all this stuff, and I paid for this. I paid like $100 race entry fee. And so what happened is I went home and I was kind of depressed, and I thought, well, what do I do? What does a young man in his early 20s do when you have all this stuff? Well, I started looking at my bike and I thought, maybe if I had a different suspension, a different linkage, more travel, different tires, I might have gotten second place or maybe first place. But I just didn't have the energy to do another season. I tried to be a pro, couldn't do it. So I'm looking at my bike one day and I thought, if I could change anything on this bike, it would be the suspension. Because if those of you, does anyone mountain bike in here? We have some enthusiasts. Great. Okay, so your ability to put power into the pedals has a direct link to travel. So a firm suspension, it's enough to take the edge off, but a too deep of a suspension, every time you pedal, it robs a little bit. Modern bikes are a little bit different, but back then that was what you went for. Short suspension on race day, long travel on a casual day. So I started inventing in my head these suspension linkages, and the most popular bike at the time was a Specialized FSR. I had several guys in my riding club that had them. I made these linkages that you could change the travel. Well, I started designing them. Get this, I designed them in Corel Draw. Does anyone know what a plot? Yeah, wow, okay. So I was making the prints, forget solids. I mean, I wasn't like Corel Draw, for those of you who don't know, it is like Photoshop's younger, dumber little brother that's super annoying, right? So I was able to make these prints, send them to machine shops and make them. Come full circle, I was realizing that all the profit was going to the machine shops because eBay would take their fees, PayPal would take their fees, they were anodized, the anodizer would take their fees. And the big chunk of the profit was from the machining of it. So naturally, I went to the bank of mom and dad, got a loan, got a Haas mini mill, and started teaching myself. Now, this was pre-YouTube. It was very hard. There was no John Saunders to tell me how to make stuff, right? So I'm teaching myself. There was a cam package called Feature Cam, which is now an Autodesk product, I believe. That was a remnant piece of software from my dad's company. He was in sheet metal. I had no mentors. I just knew about manufacturing in general. And in that, I started making products. These not work holding products, suspension products. And I had my second pain point in life. I realized that one man making one part in one vise, using one machine for one cycle at a time was so painful. For some people, it's therapeutic. I've learned that. But for me, it was painful. And I found myself in another, what am I doing moment? Another pain point of going, man, and I paid for this. I thought I learned my lesson. So, the analogy I use these days is, bakers don't bake cupcakes one at a time. They put a tray in. Where are the trays? Where are the baking trays in this industry? Well, there really were none. There may have been some import ones or large format pallet systems. It wasn't for me, so I created a quick change pallet system. Today, the fully developed product is our Pro Pallet system. Any customers in here? Pro Pallet? Yeah, good. Yeah, I like it. I love seeing that. Thank you. And it really solved a problem to the point where I could I could load a set of pallets, go mountain biking, come back, change pallets, go to the beach, wash off, come back, and then I'd have the same productivity that one of my neighbors would in the business park that was standing in front of the machine making one part, one vise, one cycle at a time. So that really was my light bulb moment. And I want to talk about this really quick. I ran across this video where Elon Musk was talking about his 5-step process to increasing productivity. And the first one was question assumptions and requirements. I accidentally got that right because I went, wait a minute, this is how the industry makes stuff one at a time? This is crazy. Really questioning that led me to wanting to pursue something along the lines of workholding. I didn't even know what that term was. My most valuable employees, believe it or not, are my new employees. The reason is they see things that us, veterans just don't see. We don't see our own mess. We don't see our own inefficiencies. We have this one guy, every time he makes a suggestion to his supervisor, Alex, who's the mill lead, Alex tells me, oh, Kyle said, we should probably do it this way. And we just roll our eyes and go, yeah, he's right. He's right because he saw it differently. Let's talk about that in automation. Now, when I say automation to the average person, they're probably going to think robotic arms. Okay. Most of us would too. But when I think of automation, I like to break it down. I try and keep things simple. Automation, automatic motion, sounds right? Yeah, let's go with that definition. Automatic motion, I did not realize that when I got my Haas mini mill, that was a form of automation. 20 years earlier, if I wanted to make that part, I would have been turning handles on a Bridgeport. But because some of that automatic motion had been put over into a CNC machine, I was harnessing the power of automation. Well, let me go to this. The Elon Musk thing in his 5 steps, he recognizes that automation is the last thing you should do. And he said he's made lots of mistakes in automation, making it the first thing. In fact, it delayed the Model 3 timeline a bit. I made that same mistake. About 10 years ago, I bought my first automation. It was a Universal Robots UR10. I thought it would be a replacement for a full-time employee because, right, that's what the media tells us. Automation is going to take away jobs. I had a full-time employee. Well, he was there full-time. His brain was there part-time. So I thought, oh, great, it's going to take his job. This is what it's meant for. Well, that was so far from the truth because instead of me working on the business, trying to build it, I had to jump back into working in the business, and that meant programming it. And not just programming it for what to do right, but what to do when things were not right, when there was anomalies. You see, robots, especially, if it's a simple pick and place or something like that, they don't see parts with burrs on them. They don't know the difference between a sawn edge that may have a varying length or an extruded width. They're dumb. A lot of them, most of them, we have a camera in ours, but most of them are blind. They don't have any tactile feel or feedback. Not yet. I know that there's technology coming out that will hit the mainstream. But for me, I realized, boy, we gotta do something different. So a year after that purchase of that robot, I sold it at a loss. And once again, I was experiencing the same thing. I felt all this pain and I literally paid for it once again. You'd think I'd learn from my mistakes, right? That's why I'm here. I want you to learn from my mistakes and run with my successes. So one of the things, if we're going to say that automation is beyond or before robots, if it's just automatic motion, we can actually extract a lot of principles, timeless principles to put into place before we jump into true automation or overlook that. One of the things which has come up a few times today, maybe not the word has been used, but I truly believe that we overlook the power of standardization. For example, in our shipping department, we went with standardized boxes, standardized foam inserts, and then we didn't have to manage all this different sizes of inventory. On the lathe side, we standardized to bar diameters in half-inch increments. That was it. No more chasing like an odd 47/64 material. It's just, if it doesn't end in a 0 or a 5, half-inch, whatever, 0.5, it's not going to be a standardized thing. We always had those nice round fractional numbers in stock. One thing that I did last year was, you wouldn't know this from looking at it, but we used to have 6 different fasteners in our Pro Pallet base, because I designed it like 12 years ago. Last year, we redesigned it so it uses only one standardized fastener. So instead of buying 1,000 of 6 different fasteners, we buy just 2,000 or 3,000 of one. And then that goes throughout the company. And now, really, what did I jot down? Yeah, we have 7 standardized fasteners for all our products in the company. It has been such it's almost like one guy said, it almost feels like we're cheating in business. It's so easy. Let's bring it into Fusion. The game changer for us in Fusion is standardized origins. And when you do that, you definitely want to select the right work holding for the goal you're trying to achieve. When you have standardized origins and the right work holding, it is a potent lethal combination. Let me show you just here. I pulled in the generic vise out of the Fusion library. This right here is the standard 6-inch vise. When we standardize origins, or when I recommend for customers to standardize their origins, I love to use the center of the vise jaw, of the fixed jaw. And then obviously that's your X, the Y would be against the back face. And then the Z, I don't have it modeled in there, but you would use either like a step jaw or a parallel. That's your origin. Okay, so here's what happens, a little pushback. Well, Jay, the stock can vary in width, it can vary in thickness. That's why I probe. I get that, but again, we want to question the old way of doing things. We want to think through things better. So by doing this, what we have found is that by going from an origin that does not move, we're then able to model up perfectly in Fusion both our work holding, our workpiece, and the stock. And then, the pushback might be, well, I tried to face a part and it was too short. Well, that's not a problem. That's not your problem. That's a stock problem. This also prevents you from crashing into the jaw. On a double vise, this is great. I love probing both fixed jaws and bringing the origin to the center and then modeling up everything off of that. On our Pro Pallet system, I've recommended the center of our round pin as your X, Y, 0. And then those pads, there's 4 pads, that's your Z0, and you model everything up from there. Another thing that's often overlooked is high density work holding. That's not a term you use a lot or hear a lot. I'm certainly a proponent of that. But high density work holding, it's so easy in Fusion because you just pattern it. You do 2 patterns. You do an initial pattern in the design workspace. I think I have a shot of that. And then you do any type of pattern, like here you see along, like I probably modeled up the top left one and patterned it using a rectangle. And then because this pallet is symmetrical, we did a circular pattern to bring those around. Really nice workflow. These are easy things that don't require fancy robots. They use the CNC machines that we have access to. If we do talk about robots, I can tell you this. If I were to take all the emails and the phone calls and I could aggregate them from all the integrators that I talk to, I would say that I would highly encourage people to move parts on fixtures rather than the parts themselves. Again, robots don't see chips, parts with damages. They don't even know most of the time if they've misloaded a part. That is human work, to put eyes on it, to simply see a chip, clear it, put the part in. Well, when Brian, I noticed, you've standardized with all your pallets with vices, and the load station, the operator does that, and then the robot interfaces with that one pallet in the work holding in the machine if it is a 0 point. Yeah, by moving to standardized fixtures, we interact with just the interface, and it's typically a simple interface, an interface that doesn't have variations. It's known, it's able to be duplicated, simply like a cleat or some type of ball and pin method. There's a lean term in Japanese called jidoka, which is the ability for machinery to be able to inspect their own work and do either 2 things: either create an alarm condition and bring the process to a safe stop so that the operator, the human, can come in and do what humans do best, problem solve, be creative, or to make adjustments, kind of like the stuff that Dan was talking about. It goes in, it sees what it did essentially wrong on the first cut and applies corrections from there. To be honest, I love hearing that Dan shared that with us, but I just don't think we're there yet in terms of out-of-the-box, off-the-shelf automation stuff. You just don't hear enough about it. So until these types of jidoka type of approaches become mainstream, we really do need to dig in with some of these things like standardized origins, moving parts on pallets, on fixtures rather than the part itself. I do think, but I noticed this in Brian's image, that the latest wave of third-party robotic, all-in-one type cells, all of them use palletized work holding. All of them interact with standardized fixtures instead of parts. I think that the ones that are the third-party integrators that have their own products, they've experienced the pains of their customers, and so they say, forget it, we're just going to standardized interfaces. That is, if there's anything I want you to hear, I do want you to hear this right here. Select the right work holding for the goal you're trying to achieve. But really, if there's a number 2, a close second place on the podium, it would be that standardization goes a long way. Now, let me just caveat this. If you are prototyping, I think something like a 6-inch vise is fine. Like if you're making under 20 parts, that's fine. You could just knock it out. It's okay. I will forgive you for that. If you're going to production, I'm going to toot our own horn here, but high density work holding is tough to beat. If there is a downside, it does require creativity to design the fixtures, but those fixtures, well, for me, if you're like me, and I think most of you are, that's life-giving to design a fixture and create a process and then to put it into motion and then watch it stand the test of time. I mean, nothing makes me happier. So high density work holding, that's a game changer. It really is. So I would highly encourage people to kind of think through that. You reduce cycle time, you reduce a tool travel time, tool change time. You can go typically lights out or close to lights out or during break time. Speaking of lights out production, that's where when we get into robots, pallet pools, bar feeders, oh man, my favorite type of automation is a bar fed lathe. And the lathe ideally should have twin spindles, live tooling, Y-axis. I've said publicly, like, hey, that is about as close as you can get to printing money without going to federal prison. It's a beautiful thing because a bar feeder, like I said this morning, it's a simple, affordable, one-axis robot that loads a bar and pushes it into the spindle. My favorite type of automation. Yeah, I started this talk with a story of kind of like my life. Let me bring it full circle. I got to read you this email. I've sat on it for several years, but it really kind of puts a bookend on what I'm trying to say here. He says, "Hey Jay, I wanted to send you a quick note to thank you for sharing your products and videos. It may sound dramatic, but your pallet system has changed my life." Okay. "Let me explain. I work for a local food distributor and enjoy my day job. I also started making and selling custom knives on the side for fun. Sales actually grew to the point where my Tormach 1100 couldn't keep up with demand, not because of the machine, not because of that automation that he had, but because I was at work instead of making parts. I saw your video speech at IMTS and everything just clicked. I binge watched all your Fixture Friday videos, bought your Pro Pallet system, and went on to make fixtures for blades and left and right handles. I had a nice workflow of loading a pallet before work that ran until lunch. Then my wife would swap pallets and hit start." Gotta love that free wifey labor. I love that. "After work, I'd do another pallet change that would run past dinner, and then I'd swap parts and load up all the pallets with raw material for the next day. It's been 3 years and knife sales have averaged $72,000 per year. This has allowed my wife to quit her job and stay home to raise and teach our kids, and change pallets apparently." My words, not his. We're even putting money aside for our kids' college. I can't imagine what our lives would look like had I not run across your videos and purchased your products. Hopefully now you can understand why I'm not being dramatic when I say your products have changed my life and the legacy of my family. Sincerely, Robert." Gets me every time. Man, Robert gets it. Robert had an idea. He chased that idea, that dream. He had the machine. He paired the right work holding and aligned it with the goal that he was trying to achieve. And it's changed the destiny of his life. His words, not mine. I just hope that someday we can all grow up to be just like Robert. Thanks for your time.
So if you've made it to this point in the video, congratulations. I can tell you're the type of person that's going to thrive with automation in your facility. Do you have questions in the meantime? Have you had experiences with automating your facility? Take that conversation into the comments. I'm going to do my best to respond to every single one of them. And until next time, go innovate your production.